Good day, awesome YouTubers. It is LiarMan16 here for another Mob Psycho 100 episode review. This one is going to be episode 5, which in the Japanese is Ochimusa, which are the psychic powers and me. This episode was a pretty sad one, pretty action-packed, but pretty actually sad in the ending part of this episode. I found this episode to be very interesting. It starts off with Mob and Dimple, just like last episode, standing there after Teru beat all the bullies and basically everyone from that other school. And now Teru is wanting to fight Mob, and he's using his psychic powers to try to attack Mob to see who is basically the strongest, because Teru is kind of, he had that ego, he has quite a lot of ego. He essentially thinks he's the best psychic user, and he's above all the average guys, all the average kids that, study, they work out, they have singing or musical talents. He says that his talent, his skill, his gift, essentially, is beyond anything in this world, and that is to have psychic powers. So he starts using psychic powers on Mob. Mob doesn't really do anything. Dimple, that other spirit ghost guy, whatever you want to call him, he tries to prevent Teru from fighting and all that stuff. And, well, Dimple actually transforms it to his full power. Even though he has only a little bit left, he has just enough to where he can transform. But, alas, it is to no avail. Teru just slashes him once, wipes him out, and that's the end of Dimple. We don't know if he's going to come back, because at the end of the episode, it does not seem like he comes back. So moving on to Mob versus Teru, they start fighting. Teru is gaining the upper hand. He starts thrashing Mob through buildings, the school building, through the home ec room, all that kind of stuff. I mean, Mob's completely helpless, but of course, that's because Mob is not fighting back. He refuses to fight back because he thinks that he should not use psychic powers on another human, another normal person. Reagan actually told him this once, I think. I believe it's something like that. He actually told him this once in a flashback. So, moving on, Teru versus Mob. They're going at it again. Mob is still not fighting back. It's been quite a while. This is after the commercial break, basically. We come back. Mob's fighting Teru. And at one point, Teru, basically he can't take it anymore. And he slams Mob against like a chalkboard. And all throughout this time, Mob's saying, like, why do you want to fight me? I haven't done anything wrong. But of course, Teru wants to prove his superior psychic powers. He wants to be, basically, it's like Teru is kind of his rival, but it's really not, because Teru, he says to Mob, like, everything was perfect. He had a perfect world before Mob came in. And so he wants to kind of like get revenge on Mob and to see who's really the strongest psychic user out of them both. Mob is at 50% towards explosion, and then of course Teru starts to choke him just with his normal strength, not with any psychic powers. He chokes him more and more and more and more, and Teru is telling him over and over again, why don't you use your psychic powers? And Mob explains to him, well, he cannot, because that would do major damage, and he does not want to do that. But eventually he gets to the point where Mob actually gets triggered. What happens here is Mob almost passes out, and the narrator says in between these shots, like, they both refuse their ideals, so the victor cannot be decided. Or is it? Because after this scene, Mob actually does explode, goes 100%. He goes full-on psychic power. Teru tries to block it with his ultimate barrier, but it's to no avail. Actually, there's a funny sequence in there where Mob actually, I think he uses his psychic powers for a little bit, and almost it makes Teru bald in the center of his head. he was only like hair sticking out on the sides. That was kind of a funny scene. But going back to that full scene where he goes 100%, Teru actually loses all of his clothes. All of his clothes were wiped out, burned out by Mob's psychic power, and the building around him starts to crumble. Teru is lifted up in the sky with this rubble, and he's basically telling Mob like, okay, you can stop now, you're better than me, please stop doing this, you're causing too much damage. And well, this is the sad part of the episode. It ends off with Mob on the ground. After all this, he goes back to normal. Mob's actually crying. He actually goes 100% again, but this time he's crying instead of raging, if you know what I mean. Because he remembers to where in a flashback where some bullies were beating up on his brother Ritsu, and he lost control and he went full berserk power, whatever. He went 100%, and he actually damaged the bullies. So on the ending sequence where Mob is returning home, he's trying to look for Dimple, but he can't find him. And of course, his brother Ritsu walks in, and they have a discussion about the time when he used his powers to defeat those bullies. And that's pretty much where it ends off. I'm very curious to see what's going to happen next episode. I actually did not see the preview for next episode because I was kind of in a rush to get this episode out there. So I'm sorry for that, guys. But yeah, I don't know if Mob is ever going to control his power fully. That'll be interesting if he does be able to control his power. If he is be able to do it later on in this series. I don't know how long this series is going to last. I think they said it's like 25 episodes. It's going to be interesting. Can't wait. That's been my review. Very action-packed, little comedy in there, and much more emotional in this one. So that's it for this one. Stay awesome, guys, and have a good one.